I feel like there are, and it's tough, right? It's really tough because I feel like I'm building and flying the plane at the same time. Sometimes I have to go back and talk to myself. So I'm glad I have a digital twin that can talk to me and pull me out of like, hey, listen, you might be down because this is taking longer than it's been, but also look at, where you've been. Look at some of the things that you've been able to accomplish.
Welcome to the Growth Mavericks podcast, where we know that entrepreneurship isn't just about strategy. It's about stamina. It's about disrupting your default and getting comfortable being uncomfortable so you don't burn out before you break through. I'm your host, Adam Callanan. Let's get to work. Today's conversation is with Mary Spio. Mary has an absolutely fascinating history. Her journey started as a child. She was born in the United States, but spent much of her childhood in Ghana during a military coup, and saw a documentary about the astronauts being on the moon when she was very young. And it quite literally dictated her life's journey, which got her through the US Air Force, being a satellite technician, later working in deep space engineering. She went on to work on big time classified projects, satellite projects with rockets, and did some pioneering digital cinema stuff in Hollywood via Boeing. She's just done some absolutely fascinating, deeply complex things, and then went on to found a company called Ceek. It's Ceek. I'll put links in the show notes and everything at the end. It's a VR, AR, and AI platform that it started with concerts and education and has evolved into this full-blown ecosystem that does a whole lot of very, very, very interesting things, like giving nurses the ability to practice intubations without having to do it on live people, which is a thing I didn't even know happened. We get pretty into the weeds, partly because I love the complexity and also partly because I'm really personally interested in the sort of AI and digital twin revolution, the sort of the avatarization of information. This becomes really relevant for me at Pentane and how our future look on how we create and evolve product. And Mary is at the forefront of that with Ceek. So obviously we spend a lot of time in the sort of resilience and entrepreneurship, and Mary's time growing up in Ghana obviously had a massive role in that. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Mary Spio. I am excited to talk to you. I did some digging, some obligatory pre-podcast digging into your background, and there's a lot of directions we could take this, which is really, really cool.
Oh, cool.
Why don't we start with where you're from?
Yeah, I'm actually from New York, but my parents are from Ghana. And so my parents
Cool.
my dad went to Syracuse. So while he was there, that's when I was born, I guess. Some people I'm not an anchor baby, but, basically I was born in Syracuse while, if I can be the face of anchor baby, sure.
Yeah, no, that's definitely not the direction I was going with that.
Yeah.
There's always, even being first generation, which
Mhm.
I am not, I'm like ninth generation or something. My family came from Ireland a bazillion years ago.
Oh, nice.
There's generally a fairly interesting, take on the US and entrepreneurship and what you kind of can
Yeah.
and can't do versus some other places. But
Mhm.
so you grew up in New York, and then where did you go to school? Because you got into some
Um,
really interesting stuff. We'll obviously get to that.
yeah, so I was born in Syracuse, New York. We went back to Ghana. So I did my early schooling in Ghana, and then I came back when I was 16. So at 16, I came back. I was living on my own in New York, and graduated high school, went in the Air Force. And then from there, went back to Syracuse University. I was actually telling my son the other day, he was asking about, applying to schools. He said, how many schools did you apply to? I said, one. I just applied to Syracuse. That was it. He said, that wasn't very smart. What if you hadn't gotten in? But yeah, I went back to Syracuse University. And then from there, I went to Georgia Tech for my graduate studies.
And what were your graduate studies?
It was in space communication. So I'm a deep space engineer. I've, worked building satellites, moving satellites, and building rockets and all that good stuff. Yeah. So it was in space engineering. But my undergrad was in electrical engineering and computer science.
I am a very self-proclaimed nerd.
Mhm.
I come from the maths and the sciences as well, more on the biology, molecular cellular biology side. But I
Mhm.
do nerd out big time on in the world of quantum mechanics, and
Mhm.
I spend a lot of time. I have young kids as well. I'm not sure if your kids are young or not. That's an assumption. My young kids and I spend a lot of time talking about space and
Mhm.
all of these magical unknown things. How did you end up there? Did you always want to do that?
Um, it's interesting because I was the reason when I came back to the US, I was very inspired by a documentary that I'd seen on space. So
Hmm.
I kind of, because I talk about the fact that growing up, this was like during a very tough time in, the country's history where there was like a military coup, right? So soldiers in the streets, all this. But during this time, we would watch TV, and I'd seen a documentary on space, which really inspired me because to me, America then became that symbol of possibility, right? Like these guys are just walking on the moon, right? We're worried about, tomorrow. And so I became very fascinated by space and just followed that path. So when I went in the military, I actually tested very high for the sciences. So in the Air Force, I became a satellite technician. And so from there, I just continued to pursue studies in, space engineering. And there was a book that I was reading on satellite communications, which was written by Dr. Sefis. And he was at Georgia Tech at the time. And so I wrote to him about wanting to work for him. He was actually, he's since worked on Mission to Jupiter. And he was also leading some studies and work for SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. So I joined his team. We built, space probes to send into space, searching for intelligent life forms. We sent music patterns and stuff like that into space. I can't tell you whether what the results were, but that was all very interesting to me. Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. I
Mhm.
appreciate that you can't talk about the results. I'm sure lots would love to go down that fun rabbit
Yeah.
hole. Do you remember what that documentary was? Was it a Ghana documentary, or was it a big documentary?
No, it was a big documentary. It was it was a documentary about the moon landing. So
Okay,
I'm not sure who did it, but it was talking
cool.
about we come in peace for all mankind and
Mm.
all that. I was like, wow, this is really cool. Yeah. So I
And
don't remember this documentary.
roughly how old were you when you had that or seen it?
When I saw the documentary, I was probably maybe 8 years old
Okay.
or maybe even younger. Yeah, but it, was a turning point in my life for sure because I felt like, wow, there's a world out there where there are no limits. And I want to be part of that because um, I've always felt like I was meant for something more and just follow that, inner knowing basically.
Yeah. I mean, what a magical thing to be exposed to at the right time, right?
Yes.
At that
Yes.
young, impressionable, dealing with probably some interestingly difficult stuff in a place
Yeah.
like Ghana at that time.
At that time, yeah.
Yeah. So, so you were back in the U.S. living on your own in New York at the age of 16. I mean, were you like legitimately in an apartment by yourself at the age of 16, or were you with family or a friend or?
No, I mean, where I was living, I had a room, right? And so there were other immigrants living there.
Oh,
And
cool.
so, yeah, but I had a room.
But you were obviously incredibly independent at a relatively young age.
When I first came, I had a, family that I lived with that my parents knew. And then after graduating high school is when I went, to New York. And then while I was waiting to go in the military, because I went in the military at 17.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. So
Yeah.
you,
My parents had to sign for me to go in because you're supposed to be 18. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
the whole process. Yeah.
Amazing.
Mhm.
So you go through that, you come out on the other end of the military. And then from there, did you do your graduate studies before the military or after?
No, it was after. So
Oh,
right
okay.
after high school, I went into the Air Force,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
then after the Air Force, because in the Air Force I was studying, I was a satellite technician, so I was
That's right.
part of the Advent team. We would go into, different war zones and set up the communications so that the troops could, communicate on a secure, lines on via satellite. So that's what I was doing. So afterwards, I wanted to continue to work in satellite communications, and I worked on cryptographic programming and so on. Yeah.
And then from there you went, so you trying to create the timeline here to so we can eventually end up where you are today, which is also super
Yes.
interesting. So
Mhm.
what happened after that experience in at Georgia Tech? Did you go work in a professionally work in a lab, or did you go into a private enterprise, or how'd that go?
So what's interesting is actually while I was at Georgia Tech, so during my undergraduate, I was working for a company and then I was working for the Aerospace Corporation, which is the US military's arm that does all the research. And part of the work that I was doing while I was at Georgia Tech, they were able to set up like a lab station for me to continue to work. So I would go to classes during the day, and
Mm,
at nighttime, I would be working on very top secret projects, in my dorm room. So a lot of the guys liked me, right? Because they could come and play games on their video games on my computer, which was super fast, and all the stuff that they had set up. I don't know if that was, but so after that, I went to work for Aerospace Corporation, and then from Aerospace Corporation, I went to work for Intelsat. Intelsat, I worked as a broadcast television engineer, so I was building television networks. So if you had content and you wanted to build a TV network like CNN or, HBO actually, which were all clients, CNN, HBO, AT&T, and T, and so on. So building satellite networks for their services. And then I had, developed some technology for delivering content over space, which was digital technology. Because a lot of times at that time, people were focused on analog technologies.
mm.
So the Boeing company approached me about acquiring that technology. And so from there, I went to work for Boeing as head of satellite communications. They acquired that technology, and that was a digital cinema technology, which allowed movies to be broadcast over satellite versus having to send the reels, which was a tremendous cost savings.
Yeah,
Because back then, if you were distributing movies to 30,000 theaters and it had 5 screens, that was 150,000 reels, right? It wasn't very good for the environment. Plus, it was expensive, prone to piracy, and then also it was fraught with a lot of dishonesty, right? The movie theaters could play it multiple times. There was no accountability. So being able to create a technology that allowed a single broadcast that would cost, let's say, 300 to 400,000 versus spending 30 million on FedEx costs and replacements and the telecine process was a huge breakthrough for the movie industry. Our first client was Lucasfilms, and then from there we worked with 20th Century Fox and all the different movie companies. Actually, a few years back when the Oscars started honoring, technology, the people behind the scenes, right, in the movies, I saw that 70, for example, did a shout out, which was very, very cool.
That is amazing. How so that technology, your current company, Seek, am I saying that
Hmm.
right? Pronouncing that
Yes.
correctly?
Hmm.
How did you leverage let's actually just talk about Seek. What does Seek do relative to that digital movie experience?
Distribution, yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, from Boeing Digital Cinema, so we created the satellite distribution. So it was kind of like having a big FTP in the sky, right? You can now send you movies digitally. After that, I thought that would open up the space for independent filmmakers, but it didn't. Because there's still the NATO process of releasing movie, the National Association of Theater Owners, the other NATO,
Yeah.
which doesn't allow a lot of the independents. And so, being that the independents still couldn't have access, I created an online video platform, which was web based. So, that was kind of like the media evolution going from satellite distribution to a web based distribution. And then that web based application, I was able to initially was supposed to be for independent filmmakers. But as we approached advertisers, they wanted to use the platform themselves. So Coca-Cola was actually our first client. They wanted to use that. So at that time, Coca-Cola was using YouTube, and on their main page, you could have Pepsi commercials, you could have I think there was a specific incident of a cat being lit or something that was not very, child friendly. So they were using our online video platform. And it grew and grew. At one point, it had 50 million users just based on the types of the type of enterprise clients that were using it. People like Coca-Cola, people like Sprite, MS Communication, all the radio stations, were using it. So after that was acquired, then I started kind of looking at, okay, what is it that I want to do at the time. Facebook was working on a lot of projects that I thought were quite interesting, so I went up there as part of a program, and when I went there, they were at that time evaluating Oculus,
Mm.
and I tried that on. It took me back to the beginning, right? I put the headset on. I didn't have to wonder what it felt like to be on the moon. I was standing on the moon, and I knew that, wow, there's so many things that can be done with this. And I wanted to use that because I was so impacted by the documentary that I saw. I felt like if a TV program can change my whole life's trajectory, imagine what this can do for someone, anywhere out in the world that puts this thing on and they can experience all kinds of stuff. And so because my background wasn't focused as much on gaming, I wanted to use this for education. I wanted to use this for concerts and other things that I was familiar with. And so that's how Ceek was born. Ceek was originally born out of as a VR platform that would open, the aperture of possibility for people. Like you put this on and, you could be, no matter where you are in the world, you could actually experience something that would excite you, to go on your own, personal journey. And it's evolved, from there. Today, we're not just VR, it's mobile, TV, AR, web browser. Today, it's really evolved into more of a social platform. So it's a multi platform, multi format social media platform. So you can experience the content, on your mobile phone, just as you would Instagram or anybody else. And then also you could put on your VR headset and be able to experience it. And because of the flexibility of being able to use Seek in VR or with a wearable or just on your phone, we've continued to see a lot of interesting usages. For example, Baptist Health. We teamed with
Mm.
them to create a nursing residency program, which the nursing residency focuses on getting nurses closing the confidence gap, because a lot of times in any career, if you can get people to stay for at least a year, then you have a chance of getting them to stay even longer. And a lot of times it's not a competence gap, but rather confidence gap. So if they can rehearse and practice using, VR, then they're going to feel more confident. And especially when you think about healthcare, there are certain procedures like intubation, right? You're intubating a patient where you're putting a tube down their throat. A lot of times you cannot practice that. That has to be done, live. So what
Yeah.
some, organizations do is they practice on low income people. They practice on Alzheimer's, elderly people with Alzheimer's or on homeless. But who wants their, lungs perforated for $50? Not me,
Wow.
definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So having a
terrible.
VR where you can actually practice as much as you want without harm to human or, anybody's lungs, that's a huge win. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what an amazing use case. And obviously, from a medical standpoint, that translates far outside of intubation,
Mhm. Oh,
right? I
yeah,
mean, that
yeah,
could
yeah.
apply that to almost anything inside of a medical setting, practical medical
Absolutely.
setting.
In fact, we've had a lot of requests. Like we created a sepsis diagnosis
Mm.
before COVID, right? And then during COVID, that just went through the roof because they had to really use it. And we've had different organizations that want to use it for example, active shooter, scenarios where the
Sure.
schools can use it to train people God forbid, in case of that. And then also the hospitals can use it to train, multiple, because it's a multi-user platform. They can actually coordinate, and it's almost like a video game experience. But we have so many different applications, even outside of the VR. We have, a current user of the platform that we're customizing it for aviation. They're using
Huh.
it for electric aviation. And just a few years back, most mobile phones were not coming with barometers, magnetometers,
Wow.
accelerometers. And so you couldn't really simulate altitude and acceleration and all of that. But now with the new phones, given the capabilities, we're able to do at scale, because you can't fit 1 million people in one single airplane. But with our platform, you can actually train. And so that's something that we're actively customizing for a specific, and the best way to think about these customizations, it's kind of like if I'm on Facebook, right, and a brand has specific needs, but our platform, because of the flexibility of it, it's more, the interest is coming from creators that want to be able to engage deeply with their fans in multiple ways, and then also from organizations that are looking to upskill at scale.
Is there a hardware component to this, or is it entirely software?
There's a hardware component. However, um, it's completely independent, right? So if you have an Oculus, you can use it with an Oculus. Whatever device that you have, you can use it. The hardware component is your mobile phone. So you just download the app and you can use your mobile phone. We have our own VR headset, which is
Okay.
mobile for Android and iOS, but it's completely optional because you can still engage with it without being in VR. It's completely standalone. You decide, how deep you want that experience to be, how immersive you want that experience to be. If you just want to hold your phone and turn it around, you could do that. If you want to throw on a Oculus headset or Apple Vision Pro, you could do that. We were one of the launch partners with Apple Vision Pro, actually.
Very cool.
Hmm.
How do you look at AI and AI video content creation in this space? If you're an early stage e-commerce brand doing anywhere from startup to 5 million a year in revenue, Pentane was built for you. It can help you operate more profitably. Just launched is a pulse check report. This shows you what's working, what's not working, and exactly what to do within your business. And this is not just general advice, it is very specific. Like raise your prices by 4.6% to get to break even, or you need to hit a 2.34 return on ad spend in order to remain profitable with your marketing. It's far better than a report you'd get from an outsourced CFO that would cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars. And right now it is totally free. Head to pentane.com/pulse check.
Yeah, and so we have AI completely integrated. We also have your AI digital twin. So everything that you do on the platform, it creates a knowledge base. So I could talk to Adam, right? I could talk to Adam about, Adam, I want to start a podcast or whatever problem you're having. An example being because we have a lot of music content, for example, if you have someone that's being bullied at school, they search for bullying, they can come up with Taylor Swift's digital avatar, and Taylor Swift could talk to this person about being the tall girl as well, and guide her through the process, and then even recommend other videos that are on the platform. So it's this customization, personalization of experiences, that relational depth that you're able to have thanks to our AI integration. So that's what a Ceek AI digital twin does. It trains on real expertise. So there's a lot of specificity. So if I'm searching, whatever I'm searching for, because we have Dwayne Wade Celebrity Sports Academy on there with like LeBron's coach has been on there. And,
Huh.
so if I'm an athlete that's dealing with an ACL injury and I'm searching Google, I may get a generic information that says maybe you're supposed to heal in a month, but then you're like, it's been 3 months. And this is an actual scenario that I've seen, live on the platform. But now you can have access to multiple people that have dealt with specific injuries, from a former pro athlete to maybe an orthopedic surgeon. You can have that full 360 opinions that would help you with your process. So maybe one person's digital twin is just helping you with that mental, resilience as you're going through it. Maybe another a personal trainer is, you're getting on there and they're doing a one-on-one coaching with the platform, showing you the type of exercises that you could do to strengthen, yourself as you heal. So we have been able to integrate the AI to really personalize the experience. And we're doing things that, simply were impossible without AI. But we are an AI first. If you go back as far as, even 5, 6 years ago, we were talking about using AI for a predictive technology, which is what allows you to be able to go into a virtual environment and then have a time of day. It's a very reactive environment. So if I'm in Tibet, at 9 p.m., I can actually, when I go in there, it's dark. That's all, based on our AI foundation. So we're just now expanding it, for uses that make sense now.
Can any user, Joe Smith off the street go in and create their own avatar and become that, if they're a tennis coach, come in and be a tennis coach avatar now?
Yeah, I mean, you just go to Ceek.com and the avatar doesn't even have to be 360. It could just be on the website. And a lot of the features that the AI features, the AI digital twin features that we have on the website, we are currently in the process of raising capital. And then once that's, done, we are updating a lot of the features on the mobile app as well. But anyone can create a digital twin, and that trains on who they are, and you can customize it as much as you want, as much as you want your digital twin, or you can just let it study from your posts that are on the site. Yeah, anyone can do that. Just go to Ceek.com.
This
Mm-hmm.
is an entirely selfish question.
Mm-hmm.
Can you create that digital twin and then link the data that digital twin pulls from to a database via API or MCP?
You will be able to do that. Currently, we're not able to link because we're still in the early process,
Yeah.
but eventually you'll be able to link all aspects. So you'll be able to link your calendar. So when you come, I was actually just testing it the other day. So when somebody comes to your digital twin and says, "Hey, Adam, what are you up to?" Say, "Hey, I'm in a meeting right now, but feel free, da da da." And then it will also be able to access your entire digital footprint, as well as you can have specific, so in this case, maybe you have some pictures, some private pictures of yourself, that speak to when you climbed some mountain somewhere that you only want to share with people that are subscribing to your profile. It can have it to where it can show them those pictures as they're interacting with you. And so those will not be stuff that's publicly available. So yeah, your knowledge base can keep growing, but it's all very specific to you. And the best part is it's all secured on the blockchain. So you own
Mm.
your footprint and you can eventually even license that to, you can license that to a school that maybe wants to, you know, teach people about whatever subjects that you cover, to a school, even to AI itself to train. Because currently most of the AI platforms just scrape from online to train their models. But the danger of that is now you have memes and misinformation that's training on itself. So it's kind of like making a copy of a copy of a copy of a faulty copy to begin with. So having the ability to verify this information and license it on your own terms, I think is really important. Which also, kind of takes me into part of, I'm super, super, super passionate about ensuring that as we build the next wave of the web, that we're not, contributing all this content to platforms for free. You look at all these massive companies, they've really operated on free content, right? From you and I, our data, which is the most valuable resource today. We don't own that. The people who create that data don't own it. So being able to own that data is very important because you see creators that are spending thousands and thousands to create content, but they cannot even earn enough from these platforms to pay for the content that they're creating. And I understand, I'm not saying that it's unfair. I'm just saying that that structure is fundamentally broken, and we cannot build on that for for the next this new era of AI for the new economy.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the blockchain because that's exactly where I was going to go next. It's
Oh, okay.
just such a natural progression with ownership and the direction that all those things. I can see. I mean, even within my own company, Pentane, there's this long-term, longish term vision direction that I have
Hmm.
for that business, and being able to take the data, which our clients, it's their data, they do whatever they want with it. But being able to make that data talk and being able to link an avatar, maybe it's me, maybe it's somebody else, that's not important at this point, to be
Hmm.
able to create an environment where they can actually communicate with their data. Because our clients, our typical customer is an early stage brand. It's a generally early stage e-commerce brand. So
Hmm.
they're, some are operating at 200,000 a year, some are at 5 million a year, generally on the smaller end of that.
Hmm.
And creating a way for them to engage with that data without having to go and like look at a dashboard and try to parse through it
Yeah.
is the direction that we are naturally moving the
Hmm.
company and our forward looking systems right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've set up, and we're starting to play with like Delphi. I don't know if it's
Oh,
Delphi or
nice.
Delphi, to
Yeah.
create, because I have a lot of content around being an entrepreneur and writing articles
Mm.
and doing blogs and doing podcasts and all this stuff. So we've fed all of that in there, and it, like, talking to myself in the system is super creepy, but awesome at the same time. Cause it's like way smarter than I am, because it
Right.
has this
Right.
like wealth of data. But the challenge that I have, and I see it as a stepwise progression. The challenge is right now, it's just you're interacting with this modeled system. I want to be able to connect the data that exists in a given company to that modeled system, so that modeled
Hmm.
system can give them information in the way
Yeah.
that I would portray it about what's happening in their specific situation.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the next step for us is the API integrations. Especially actually, that's something that one of our aviation clients was also asking about because as they're doing training, there are things that are happening in the marketplace. Like, one example that I saw recently was it's an update that they're doing on a specific, type of jet where multiple companies have reported to them the same issue with a battery pack,
Hmm.
right? And so being able to extract that independently of them having to come and input that type of information is extremely important. So it can just pull from all these different APIs so they can update their current systems and then the knowledge base automatically updates it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's such an amazing and important leap
Hmm.
to be able to
Yeah.
connect that dynamic communication function with the hard data, with
Yeah.
that critical information that sits in the back somewhere in a database.
Yeah,
It's very
absolutely.
cool.
And for us too, I think a big part of, the successes that we've had, right? Whether it's getting in, funding from Meta or partnership with Microsoft or Apple, a big part of it has been our ability to integrate all these fragmented systems because that's the bottleneck, right? A partner like Universal Music, they partnered with us because they wanted the ability, they had a whole department that was focusing on building their VR experiences, but or their AR experiences, and then they have to build for Meta and HTC, and after a while they were like, you know what, we're just not even going to do it. But with Seek, they're able to upload to one platform, and then they're able to monetize across all these different devices. And then, we continue to do the integrations, like now with the digital twin and so on and so forth, so they can focus on what they do and their business, their core business, which is making, hit music or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit, part of something that we'll always cover in this podcast that is really important to me, because I've had to make some really big changes in my life to deal with all these like super fun ups and downs in the last 20 years of entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
Um, how do you look at, I mean, you're raising money, you're, doing huge partnerships with big legacy, some legacy, some probably not, enterprise. How do you deal with these crazy ups and downs? Are there things that either come from your upbringing or that you have built into your life to help you withstand these huge swings?
Yeah, I feel like there are, and it's tough, right? It's really tough because I feel like I'm building and flying the plane at the same time. Sometimes I have to go back
Yeah.
and talk to myself. So I'm glad I have a digital twin that can talk to me and pull me out of like, hey, listen, you might be down because this is taking longer than it's been, but also look at where you've been. Look at some of the things that you've been able to accomplish and I'm trying to convince other people that it's possible, right? So just having something bigger than myself that we're working on here, um, and but it's tough, it's not easy. And I think that those principles that I'm able to just fall back on, and a big part of that, I think that the first one is just depersonalizing the problem, right? Because
Uh,
if you start to look at it as a me problem, rather than everybody goes through this or a lot, if it were easy, everybody would be doing it, right? Um, and so that's one aspect that also helps me kind of push through, looking at, and the whole idea of the digital twin in addition to being able to learn is also having someone you can instantly connect to because it's very isolating when you're going through a specific situation, right? So having the ability to instantly connect to someone who's been there, who says, you know what? It took me 1,000 emails to land my Series A, right? Because you're just reading announcement after announcement after announcement after announcement, 500 billion here and
yeah.
or you've even talked to a specific fund and they're saying, no, we're not investing in this. And then you're seeing them invest in something that's, not even close. And so when you're seeing all these ups and downs, it's easy to think, oh my God, woe is me. But having the ability to connect to multiple people who've been there. And to me, that's the power of the digital twins that we're building at Seek. And we want that to be a hub of the world's most kindest people, right? People who've raised their hands and said, yes, I want to be a part of this so people can learn from my experiences. So those who are about to take a path can their path, you can light their path forward. I mean, they pay for that valuable access, but having that to me is, a powerful part of it. Because if you look at even with women, I saw a stat from the CDC that says 1 in 3 young women do not see today, they don't see their future. They don't see a tomorrow for themselves. And they have seriously tried to harm themselves. 1 in 3 women,
Wow.
that's an epidemic,
Yeah.
right? And it's not because of, and it's 90% of these cases are stemming from economic uncertainty, a search for purpose, and other non-medical factors. Non-medical factors, so this is not even clinical. It's infrastructure breakdown. It's a missing infrastructure. The fact that they don't have anyone that they can connect to at that point of need. And so, that's what I talk about. Kind of flying the plane while I'm building it because I'm eating my own food, right? I'm connecting to these people that are kind of helping me process the challenges as I go. And then at the same time, I'm helping other people by saying, hey, listen, it's not easy because on social media, you get to see the highlights, right? Here, you're able to share, the people see the highlights, but you're also able to share the lowlights and the process that brought you to where you are today. Which is what I think a lot of people are missing. Because when they're doing the comparison, they're comparing their day 7. You just said 20 years of experience. Someone is looking at you on their day 20 and they're comparing themselves to what you've been able to achieve, not knowing that it's been a 20-year journey. And so that's what we're able to do with the digital twins. It's say, hey, you know what? Don't compare your day 20 to my year 20, because then you wouldn't even know how well you're doing. And so, a lot of the processes that have helped me is also what I've codified into Seek to help other people so they don't have to go through this long process that I've been through.
How there's so much value in just being able, just flat out, just being able to talk to someone. I
Yeah.
mean, I heard Sam Altman on a interview recently that was talking about the percent of ChatGPT users that are straight up using it for therapy was
Mhm.
it was crazy. I'm not going
Yeah.
to make the number up, but it was double digits. It was 10,
Yeah.
20, 30%. It was this massive number that has
Yeah.
a daily active user that's millions, I mean, hundreds of millions. It's like these insane numbers. So
Yeah.
clearly there is a need there, being able to connect a face to it and an
Yes.
experience base. That's a whole nother
Yes.
level.
Yes. And to make sure that you know where the information is coming from. Because as excited as we are
Yeah.
about, the ability for you to, connect instantly, we want to make sure that people are talking to, AI that's trained on real people's
Yeah.
experiences, and not misinformation.
This has been incredible. Where do you want people to, we've mentioned the website a couple of times. I'll make sure these things all get in the show notes, but where do you want people to find you and to find Seek?
Definitely sign up on Ceek.com, create an account. It's so easy. You can just use Seek AI to even create the content, right? Of course, you're driving that content. You can use Seek AI to create music in your own voice. We make it as easy as possible for you to create content that you can monetize, and you have the process from A to Z. So Seek.com, I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, probably LinkedIn. I love to connect with people on LinkedIn or on Seek.com. So.
Awesome. Yeah. Again, we'll put all the links in the show notes. Thank you so much, Mary, for being here. This has been a really, really interesting conversation. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. It sounds like you're
Thank
on an
you.
amazing path to do something really, really important and impactful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And, like I said, we're on WeFunder now. So if you believe in our vision of using AI to benefit everyone, not just a select few, please, show your support, share the word with everyone, so that we can build, a better world. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks,
Mhm.
Mary.
Thank you.
A huge thanks to our guests today. Don't forget, this is powered by Pentane Financial and Advertising Command Center for Consumer Brands. Stop what you're doing, put your phone down, walk away from the computer screen, go outside, get some air, do something hard, push your limits, get uncomfortable, become more durable and more resilient, create the stamina required to get through those entrepreneurial barriers, stay in the game for as long as you can, and we will see you next time.